So this video was meant to be a just general end of the year Q&A where you all could ask me anything that you wanted to know. However, I must confess that out of the 10 questions that I got, 9 of them were all writing or querying related, so this ended up unintentionally being a themed Q&A. That's all right though, and I will try to make another video discussing the other question I got, which was what was my favorite book that I read in 2024. So I will make another reel on my yearly favorites or a full-length video. Before we dive into your questions, if you're new here, hi, my name is Jackie. I'm an aspiring historical mystery author who recently signed with a literary agent on my second book in November 2024. I signed the contract. So I asked all of my subscribers if they had any questions for me, and I got a lot of questions about writing, finding a literary agent, and those related topics. There will be timestamps down below, so if you want to jump around or skip to a certain question, you can do so. But let's just dive into the questions. And of course, if after watching this video there are any other questions you would like to ask, do drop them in the comment section. I will do my best to answer, either in the comment section or if I think it's an interesting topic, potentially in a different video. So the first question is, how did you find beta readers for your book? Well, first of all, because I have this YouTube platform, I did get people who are subscribed to me to be my beta readers. For both books that I wrote, I did make writing vlogs chronicling my entire journey. And so I did have people following along the way who were interested in beta reading for me when it was that time. I posted multiple times on my community tab with a link to my beta reader survey and brought it up in multiple videos. So I did get interest from people who are subscribed to me on this platform. Of course, a lot of authors do not already have an existing social media platform. So there are some groups that you can check out to find beta readers. I do also realize now that in order to answer this question, I might have to define what a beta reader is for anyone out there who doesn't know. So a beta reader is someone that you get to read your book before you post it online, send it to agents, send it to a publisher, or self-publish, basically just to give you their comprehensive thoughts on the book. Usually with mine, I create surveys for them to answer so that I can identify, okay, what characters do they like the best? What characters they think need work? What were their favorite parts? What were the parts that they think needed editing? And just broad questions like that. So that's what a beta reader is. And if you want, you can watch the video I made on how to be an awesome beta reader with my tips. First, there is a beta readers group on Reddit, just r/beta readers is the URL, and you can make a post on there describing your book, what it's about, and the turnaround time that you're looking for. There is also a section on the Absolute Right forums where people can post if they are open to beta reading books, and you can also post if you are looking for beta readers. With my last book, I did post on there. I only got one person through that forum, but that person didn't end up being a really awesome beta reader, so I'm glad that I found that person. There are also several Facebook groups dedicated to finding beta readers. I will have to look up their names and I will link them in the description. And again, you can make posts on there if you're looking for beta readers. I only use the groups that are for free beta reading because I personally don't really want to pay someone to be a beta reader. I think it's just not necessary to pay somebody for this service when you can find a lot of people who are willing to do it for free. And also, I don't want to pay someone when I don't know what their qualifications are. You know, I don't want to just pay a random reader who doesn't have any editorial experience when I can get lots of random beta readers just for free who are just willing to do it because they're interested in reading and out of the kindness of their hearts. I do also think if you're struggling to find beta readers, one thing that you can do is try to find another author in your genre and offer to beta read for them if they will beta read for you. People call this a critique swap or being critique partners. So you might find more people who are willing to put in the effort if you are doing the same thing for them in return. Also, it is okay to have people you know in real life be beta readers. Like if you're in a critique group or you have writing friends, you could ask them. You could ask your friends or your family members. I always have my mom read my manuscript. She's always the first person to read them because I really trust her opinion and I'm not afraid of her judgment. But the caveat being, I wouldn't only have beta readers who are related to you or who are your friends, because there are some people who are not going to give you criticism because they're worried about hurting your feelings. So while it is definitely okay to have friends or family beta read for you, you should also have strangers beta read for you, because somebody who doesn't know you on a personal level is going to have an easier time giving you critique. Now, that's not to say that you can't trust your friends and family. I mean, my mom always gives me good feedback. That's why I give the books to her. But I also know that she's not going to be as critical as somebody who doesn't know me. So that's why I just have her be one of many people who read my manuscripts. So those are some of the places that I have found beta readers in the past. I hope that it is helpful. Question 2. I'm just genuinely curious about the whole process of querying in general and what your experience was like specifically. Okay, so I could give a really long answer to this question. I will try to be brief. Firstly, in case you don't know, querying is what you call the process of trying to get a literary agent. You send them a document that is known as a query letter, and in your query letter, you talk about what your book is about, the word count, who the target audience for your book is, and you tell a little bit about yourself in a short bio, trying to catch the agent's attention. So that whole process of trying to get an agent is known as querying. It is a very hard process. Like I said, I did not get a literary agent on my first book. I was very lucky because the second book that I queried, I got an agent very, very fast. So my first book that I wrote was a Regency era historical mystery nicknamed Project Mayfair. I think I still have the mood boards that I created for it. I will put that up on the screen. And I queried this for, I believe, around 9 months. And I sent queries to 67 literary agents and 1 publisher. Did not get a literary agent offer on this book. I did get a decent number of requests to read my manuscript, but all the agents who requested my full ended up either ghosting me or passing. The thing about querying that I particularly find really hard is that it is increasingly rare to get detailed feedback from literary agents. If you go on YouTube and you watch videos about querying from 5 years ago, they will have a very different strategy, because back then you could expect to get feedback from literary agents a lot of the time. Whereas nowadays, more people are writing books than ever. A lot of literary agents have left the business and it's just increasingly competitive. So most agents don't have the time to give you detailed feedback on what they think needs work in your book. So even people who requested the full for Project Mayfair, when they would reject me, their rejections would be very generic with no specific feedback. I didn't get a single rejection that actually mentioned my characters by name. So I don't know if those rejections were written personally to me or if they were the same rejection letters that were sent to hundreds of other people. You know, I just don't know. And while I totally understand why literary agents don't give personalized rejections, it was hard because I was submitting and I didn't know, for lack of a better term, what I was doing wrong. I was really hoping that somebody would give me personalized feedback explaining why they were passing so that I could learn something from it and identify room for improvement. But unfortunately, that just didn't happen. Most of the rejections that I got from those 67 queries were form letters. And so that was a discouraging experience because honestly, I think in my heart of hearts, when I started querying Mayfair, I was very confident in it, and I think deep down in my heart, I was expecting to get an agent. I wrote a book. I thought the book was really good. I thought the book was frankly better than some published books that are out on the market. So I thought that I was definitely going to get at least one offer from an agent. That didn't happen. So when I finished my second book, Project Dagger, which is my 1930s Agatha Christie inspired mystery, I was super confident in the book. I love this book. I think it's really great. I think it has an amazing premise. But even though I was confident in what I did, I really went into the querying process expecting to not get an agent. It was a complete reversal from the first time because I knew that me being confident in the book didn't necessarily guarantee success. I went in with very low expectations, but had a completely different experience. My agent, she was, I think, the second person that I sent a query to. I queried her on a Monday. She asked for the full manuscript on Tuesday, and on, I think, Thursday, she asked me if I would get on a call with her. And it was then the Tuesday after that that she formally offered me representation. So she offered to represent me only 8 days after I had sent her the query. And like I said, she was only the second person that I had queried for that book. I honestly, when she asked for the call, I hadn't even finished sending out my first batch of queries yet. So it was a completely different experience from the first time that I queried. Honestly, could probably make an entire 30-minute video talking about my querying journey from start to finish, from when I sent out Project Mayfair to when I signed with someone on Project Dagger, because I could go on and on and on. There are so many highs and lows of this process. And I think ultimately it is difficult to put yourself out there and be rejected. Everyone will be rejected. If you honestly think that nobody will reject you, I think that you're setting yourself up for disappointment if you go in with that mindset, because even really great people aren't going to be universally loved. So it is difficult to face rejection, and it's frustrating to be rejected but not really know what you're being rejected for, if that makes sense, because I know the first time I queried, I would get these generic rejections saying, oh, I really loved this aspect of the book, but this thing didn't entirely work for me, so I'm passing. And it was hard because I was thinking to myself, well, if there was something that didn't really work for you, can you tell me why? Can you tell me what that I can improve for next time? And so it is really hard to have that sort of helpless feeling. But I think it's important to remember that it's not a rejection of you as a person. It's not saying that you're not talented. I think luck is also a huge part of getting a literary agent. The second time I was very lucky because it was a whirlwind process, faster than I ever could have hoped for. And yet the first time I queried, I was languishing in the query trenches for 9 months. So just put that into perspective. Everybody's journey is different, and if something is meant to be, it will eventually find its way to you. Oh, question 3 is actually a question that I believe I got on my Reddit post that I made on PubTips when I signed with an agent, and I thought I would discuss it here as well because it's an interesting question. Why do you think there was more agent interest in your second manuscript compared to your first? That is an interesting question. And to be honest with you, I don't know, right? Because like I said, no agent who read Mayfair gave me detailed feedback. They all gave me complimentary but vague rejections. And so I can only theorize about why those agents didn't offer representation, because they didn't tell me. I can only try to read the tea leaves on this. So I can tell you what I think, but ultimately, you know, I don't know. I do think one benefit of my second manuscript is that it has a very original premise that is not like a lot of other books in my genre. I was actually struggling to think of comparable titles for the book. I do think my second book definitely had a better premise than my first book. My first book was a Regency historical mystery with a slow burn romance, and there are already on the market Regency historical mysteries with a slow burn romance. So I think that could have been part of it. And I did have, like, I think 2 agents say that they thought my premise was interesting, but they thought it was too similar to books they already represented. So that might have been a part of it. I also wonder if maybe I had a better querying strategy in some aspects, because the first time that I queried, I was looking for agents who had represented historical mystery books, who already had historical mystery authors on their list, or who had indicated on social media that historical mysteries were something they were interested in. And so if there's an agent who already represents a book in that sphere, maybe they read my book and they like it. But do they want to represent it? Because they already have something that's sort of like that, right? So they may not want another of those books, even if it is good. So those are my theories, but I can't tell you for sure because obviously I am not in the heads of literary agents and I don't know what they're thinking. The question after that is, how did you find literary agents to query? There was a vlog where I talked about this a little bit, so I will link that in the card. But just really quickly, 1, get Query Tracker. That is a database that has, I think, thousands of literary agents listed on it. Get Query Tracker, and get Query Tracker Premium if you can, because it is really helpful. You can use the tools on there to see what agents are currently open to your genre. I would also recommend Publishers Marketplace. Just get a 1-month subscription because it is expensive, but it has deal announcements for lots of different publishers, and it will tell you who is the literary agent that brokered that deal. So you can use that to look into, okay, what agents are selling in my space. I would also recommend go to Barnes & Noble, go to your genre section. So for me, I went to the mystery section, and I picked books off the shelves, flipped to the acknowledgements, and looked to see if the author mentioned who their agent was. And then I would take my notes app and I would write down the names of all the agents they mentioned. So you can always do that as well. If there is a particular author you really like, you might want to see who their agent is, though the caveat being, like, let's just say Stephen King's literary agent. Stephen King's literary agent may have not been open to new authors for the past 10 years. You know, if somebody already has a lot of extremely successful clients and is already making bank, they may not necessarily be looking to add to their client list. So that is something to keep in mind. But I think those things that I just mentioned, those are all great places to start. Question 5. I'm interested in finding an editorial agent once I finished my novel. Was this a factor in your search? If so, how did you conduct your search, especially for finding an agent interested in historical/mystery fiction? Okay, well, in terms of finding for somebody interested in historical and mystery fiction, my last question, I kind of answered that. And I do think my second time querying, it ended up not mattering in the end because I only queried, I think, 12 people. But I was much more broad in my search the second time, where basically, if an agent was looking for both historical and mystery, was looking for historical and didn't say they were opposed to mystery, or was looking for mystery and didn't say they were opposed to historical, they went on my short list. And then I narrowed down my short list based on who was actually selling to decent publishers. So I think really cast a wide net, because the worst thing they can do is say no. That is not to say, however, that you should query unreputable agents. You should only query people who you think might be a good match for you. But I'm just saying, if there's an agent who you kind of like, and you're thinking, I might like to query them, I don't know if they'll like my book, I think just shoot them a query anyway, because the worst thing they'll do is say no, right? In terms of the editorial agent, so what this person means by an editorial agent is an agent who is going to do editorial work, editing with you on your manuscript, somebody who is going to help you improve your manuscript and, have that kind of repartee with you where they're going to help you make the manuscript better. I did want an editorial agent, though. To be honest with you, it wasn't a huge factor in my search. I mean, I'm no expert, but to me, most literary agents who I've heard give interviews say that they consider themselves editorial agents. And I think probably most agents are going to be willing to do some form of editorial work with you. I don't know how many agents don't do editing with their clients at this point. So it was something I wanted, but not something that I was concerned about, because I think editorial agents, based on my perception, seem to be much more of the norm these days. Now, some things that you can do is, if there is an agent who you are on a call with, ask them about, are they an editorial agent? How do they work on edits with clients? And if they ask you to hire someone to do editorial work on your book, red flag, run fast, run far, because an agent should never ask you to pay for editing. Never, ever, ever. So if somebody asks that of you, don't do it. Don't do it. It's a trap. Another thing that you might want to do is, if there's an agent you're interested in and you're not sure if they're editorial or not, look up to see if there are any interviews with that agent or interviews with their clients. All right. So once I knew that Abby, my agent, was going to offer rep, I actually looked up some of the authors that she's worked with, and I listened to interviews that they did. And in some of those interviews, they talked about her and, how much they loved working with her and how she helped them editorially on their manuscripts. So that, of course, was a green flag. I'm like, okay, these are the authors that she works with, praising her as an editorial agent in these interviews. I feel good about this. So, a little bit of light social media stalking, I think, is okay when this is your career. Obviously, if you're going to sign a contract with someone, I think it's all right to do a little due diligence and just see what other people are saying. Again, this is not something that I was super concerned with, because I think most agents are editorial. But, if this is something you're worried about, that would just be my advice. Question 6. Did you contact the authors your agent gave you as references? What did you ask? I think I actually have a piece of paper on my desk where I wrote down some questions that I wanted to ask. So I'll go up and get that. But yes, I did contact these authors. I won't say who they were, because that just feels like an invasion of privacy, and they were private conversations. But in case you don't know, when an agent is offering you representation, you should ask them, can I speak to some of your clients? And they should say that that's okay, because it's pretty much an industry standard. If there is an agent who says, no, you cannot speak to any of my clients, I personally would view that as a red flag, because if somebody is saying that to me, in my head, that makes me think they don't believe a single one of their clients will have good things to say about them. And obviously, if an agent is giving you someone as a reference, they're going to give you someone who they think is going to speak highly of them, right? But if they literally can't think of a single person that you can talk to, that's not good. So my agent put me into contact with 2 of her clients. I spoke to one of them on the phone and another through email. She did check with those people if they were comfortable speaking with me before she gave me their information, which is totally okay, and I appreciate that. Like, obviously, you don't want to put one of your clients on the spot, but let me get that piece of paper and I will tell you what I asked them when I spoke to them. Bad news. I think I threw it out. I just looked through my desk and I can't find it. So I will have to just tell you from memory. So some of the things that I asked: why do you like working with Abby, my agent, or insert the offering agent's name here? How would you describe her editorial style? What was it like working with her on edits on your manuscript? What was your experience submitting to publishers like? This is referred to as going on sub, which is the process of when an agent is submitting a manuscript to editors at major publishing houses to see if they'll be interested in publishing the book. I asked, was there ever a time when you were struggling with a deadline, having a dispute with your publisher, or going through some other difficult time and this agent helped you through that? And that was another really helpful question to me because, again, publishing is not always sunshine and rainbows. So it's great to hear the success stories about how, so-and-so sold my book for $1 million. But there are always going to be tough times in some form or another. So I wanted to know, can you give me an example of something that was difficult for you and this agent supported you and helped you? That was a really good question. And I don't know if I asked anything else. I think then I just finished it by saying, is there anything else about working with this person that I should know, just to give them an opportunity to share anything else that they thought was relevant. Obviously, if an agent is referring to you to one of their clients, they're choosing a client that they think is going to speak well of them, obviously, but it's still good to ask just to learn a little more about what it's like actually working with this person. And I think those conversations that I had with those authors did help me feel even more confident about potentially working with my now agent. So yes, I definitely recommend reaching out to those references. And remember, if somebody won't give you references, that's a red flag. Don't do it, girl. Don't do it. Okay, the next question. Can/should you go to conferences to pitch if the manuscript is not fully polished? I.e., if the conference is once a year, is that the same as sending a query? Okay, so this person is talking about in-person pitching. So there are some writing conferences that agents or editors will attend, and usually for an additional fee, you can book a, let's say, 15-minute window to speak with that agent or editor one-on-one about your book. Now, I've never done this, so I can't speak from personal experience, but I did look into this to answer your question, and I'm going to put in the description some posts about this topic on the PubTips subreddit, so go read those to see the comments. My understanding, as someone who has never done an in-person pitch session, is that since these conferences obviously are only once a year or so, agents and editors are a little more understanding if your book still needs polishing or is not complete yet, because you could book a pitch session in June thinking that your book was going to be done by the time the conference rolls around, but then it's September and it's time for your pitch session and a lot of stuff is going on in your life, so you're not quite done yet. My understanding is they are a little bit more understanding just given the circumstances, so it's probably fine. I would just make sure to clarify to them where you're at in the process, because Obviously, if they're really interested in your project, they will ask for material, and you just want to make sure that you're being transparent about the timeline. I think it would be fine for you to still pitch, even if you're not 100% ready to query yet. All right, question 8, the penultimate question. My question is about film and character rights. Does your agent also represent you in these matters, or would you need a different agent? This is a really good question, and to be completely honest with you, this is not something that my agent and I have discussed yet, because I literally just signed with her last month, right? This is a discussion for later down the road. But my agent is at a very small agency where basically she works solo. So if you look up other authors that she works with, all of them have a separate film and TV agent. So that's an agent who would potentially negotiate the sale of that author's film and TV rights. So I'm assuming once I sell my book, fingers crossed that I do, that's when we'll have the discussion about me getting a film and TV agent, because, you know, obviously that's not the biggest concern at the moment. You gotta sell the book to sell the TV and film rights, right? So I will have a separate agent, hopefully in the future, to handle that for me. I would love to get a film or TV adaptation of my book. That is my wildest dream. Sometimes I think about who I would cast in it in my head. So I would absolutely love that, but that's a discussion for a later date. And obviously, a lot of people sell their film and TV rights, and then the project ends up dying. It never gets made into a TV show or film. So we'll see how that goes at a later date. I gotta sell my book first. But yes, to answer your question, it would be a separate person. I do believe there are some very large agencies where they do have a film and TV rights person in-house. Like, for instance, there are some very large talent agencies based in places like Hollywood where they have, you know, clients who are authors, clients who are actors, clients who are screenwriters, clients who are musicians, like these really large, successful agencies where they handle all forms of talent. So if you were with an agency like that, you would probably be represented by a person in-house for your film and TV rights. I mean, it really varies depending on what agent and agency you've signed with, because some might have a person whose job it is to handle that, and others outsource that with somebody who solely does film and television. So obviously, I haven't talked to my agent about this yet, but that's my understanding, and this was an interesting question, so hope that helps. Okay, and question 9, the final question in this video. This is also a really good question. Honestly, I think I could make an entire video just on this, so let me know if that's something you would like to see. Question 9. What is the inspiration for your stories? Where do you get your ideas? Do you know where you're going when you start a project? Or does it simply develop along the way? This is a great question. So for me, I write historical mysteries. And so a lot of the ideas that I get are based from actual historical events. You know, I love to learn about history. I love to read about different, you know, historical figures and things like that. So sometimes I will encounter something or someone that is just really interesting to me, and I kind of start thinking about, okay, how could I write a murder mystery that's like this? Or could I write a character in a murder mystery who is like this historical person? Obviously, I didn't get an agent on my Regency book, but someday I really want to write a Regency mystery with a character inspired by Lord Byron. Because he was just so interesting. He had a crazy life. The truth is stranger than fiction sometimes, so I really want to write a Lord Byron character, have him as a suspect in a murder mystery, and that's just honestly how I get a lot of my ideas, because I read about things and I get really interested in them. So I'm like, ooh, how could I do something like this in a book? And that's one of my favorite things about writing these historical mysteries. I just love being able to explore these different time periods with a fun murder mystery plot. So some of the books that I read while I was researching my books is for my Regency book. One of the books that I read was Georgian London into the Streets by Lucy Inglis. This was really good. It's talking about a lot of different aspects of life in Georgian London. And as you can see, I have some dog-eared parts. Those are all parts where I saw something interesting that I thought I could use for a Regency mystery. So this was what I read for that book. And I also had a book on the Time Traveler's Guide to Regency Britain, which that's up there as well. That was another book that I used to get some ideas for that. And then for my 1930s book, like I said, it was inspired by my love of Agatha Christie. And so I read The Golden Age of Murder, The Mystery of the Writers Who Invented the Modern Detective Story by Martin Edwards. This is his history of the Detection Club, which was the inspiration for my book. And again, you can see I dog-eared some pages. Those are pages with things that I found interesting. And if I were ever lucky enough to publish Project Dagger and write a sequel, some of these are going to help me with sequel ideas. So I do get a lot of inspiration from real things. Again, I could talk about this in a whole video if you want to hear about it in more depth. But basically, once you have the basic concept, I think the next thing to do is start thinking about who are the types of people that would populate this world. Who are some of the people that readers would expect to see in a Regency book, in a 1930s mystery writer's book? And so that's going to help you come up with your cast of characters. And then after I have the basic idea, the characters, once I decide who the murder victim is going to be and who I think the murderer would be, then I do a complete outline for the book using the Save the Cat mystery thriller plot beats, which I originally heard about from Alexa Dunn's channel. She has a video talking about must-know mystery thriller plot beats that I have watched probably at least 10 times. It helped me plan out an outline for both books that I wrote. So in broad strokes, that is my process from idea to outline. I know some people don't like to outline, but I personally need to do it because I just need to have a plan in order to see a story through to the finish. There were lots of stories that I started and I never finished because when I got to the middle, I didn't know what the heck was going on and I just gave up. So for me, I gotta have an outline. There's also a video I filmed a while ago on how I outlined both my novels, so I will link that in the card. Is the card on this side or is it that side? I never remember, but I will link that in the card too. And let me know if you want a future video with my whole outlining or planning process. So, all right, everybody, those are all the questions that you submitted to me, minus the question on my favorite book from 2024. I'll answer that later because it was the only question that wasn't thematically linked to all these other questions. But thank you to everyone who asked me something. I do really appreciate it, and I hope these answers were helpful. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed. It really does help me and my channel, and subscribe if you want to see more from me. If you have any other questions for me about writing or anything at all, do let me know in the comment section and I will get back to you. If you're still here watching and you want to show your support but you don't know what to comment, why don't you comment a pink heart emoji down below? Thank you so much for watching this video and I hope to see you next time. Bye!